Hello, welcome to People's Dispatch. It's a great honor for me again, once more, to speak with our dear friend Roger Waters, who brings his immense humanity and his great love for the world to our listeners, in fact, to the world, really. Roger, welcome to People's Dispatch.
Thank you very much, Vijay. It's a
It's
great
been
pleasure.
it's been a really rough year, hasn't it? I mean, an
Hmm.
insane year, and you've been out there saying the important things about ceasefires in Gaza and so on. But it's not just Gaza; it's an accumulation of really, appalling things happening all over the world. An accumulation. I wanted to just get your sense of how you've been feeling about things, what you've been thinking about and so on. Give me a sense of where you are these days.
Well, I live in a state of constant desperation, tinged occasionally on the edges with hope, because we can't give up hope. Uh, uh, if we give up hope, we give up our humanity. Um, every day is the same. Wake up, freak out completely, remembering that nothing's changed since yesterday, or very little. Maybe they've just burned some kid to death in his bed outside the Al Aqsa hospital in northern Gaza. I mean, yesterday I made a little video message which I put out, and I'm happy to say that, and I do check these things from time to time, that it's got over 500,000 views. And I'm glad about that because I live in a state of constant frustration that there isn't more that I can do. And I live each day in the determination that I must do one thing today. And I do. I don't let a day go past without doing something. And so sometimes I have to invent something to do, which is a very good thing. Luckily, I don't have to invent it today because I'm talking to you and talking to the People's Dispatch. Yeah, because I read your stuff all the time, and you tell a much broader story than the story that I tell. Because with your work with Globetrotter and People's Dispatch and the Tricontinental blah blah blah, you cover an awful lot more ground than I do. Rooted as you are in your very broad and deep knowledge of the people's struggle over the last few hundred years. I'm a bit of a Johnny come lately to all of this. Well, maybe not that lately, because I do have parents who are, deeply involved and so on. So I've lived with it all my life. Um, I read Patrick Lawrence's new piece this morning. It's well worth a read. It came via John Whitbeck, as things often do. John Whitbeck, for the viewers, is a friend of Vijay's and mine, who's a journalist and commentator, and who lives in Paris. And he has a large circle of what does John call them? He calls us distinguished recipients, I think, he calls us, which is lovely. And but there is I live in a circle of wonderful, passionate, caring, loving, politically motivated, good-hearted, proper people. And we exist, and Vijay, you're one of them, obviously, and we exist on the periphery of the hideous power structure that we're fighting the whole time. And that power structure is peopled by the Bidens and Keir Starmers, and they have fallen victim to I hate to go a bit diabolical about this, but to the diabolical machine that is neoliberal capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, all the very evil isms that plague all our lives, but which are left over from the 400, 500,000, let's call it 1,000 previous years of us working towards this place where they, the enemy, have managed to convince the Bidens and whatever, and Harris's and Trumps of this world, that it's okay to abrogate their responsibility as loving human beings and to carve a path that is littered, strewn with the bodies of the dead that they leave behind. So the choices between us are graphic and obvious, and so obvious that for those of us who care, it's very difficult to understand how people can ignore them. And yet, the lessons lie in front of us of how people are encouraged to ignore them and how easy it is to look the other way and not notice when the first few gypsies or queers or disabled people or communists or whoever it might be disappear into unknown places and die in agony or starve to death or whatever, and to go, well, it's nothing to do with me. Life's hard enough without having to worry about that. Well, if you don't worry about that, there will be nothing left to worry about at all. So we are all of us on our side of the Great Divide. You and I, Vijay, and the billions of people in the world like us, we are engaged in an existential battle for the soul of humanity. So our job, you in Globetrotter, me doing what I do, all of us, and there are millions of us doing this work, we are on that side of the battle. Will we save the soul? Will we save our soul or not? It's an open question. And sometimes I worry that we might not, and that my grandkids are going to have to grow up, and their kids are going to have to grow up in a world that is ever more dystopian and ever more treacherous and ever less feeling and ever less intellectual and ever less emotional and ever less understanding and more consumed by the rage of wealth and power and greed that can engulf us all so easily. So that's where I live.
That's beautifully said. I'd have to say that the soundtrack of my life are the songs that you've written, starting with, for me, of course, with so many people, Dark Side of the Moon as an album. But over the last month, I've been listening over and over again to an album whose title actually reflects what you just said. Is this the life we really want? From 2017. And I knew this song before, I'd heard it many times, but I hadn't really heard it, listened to it like I've been doing this last week. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you. And the song is The Last Refugee, which, begins in this beautiful way with the BBC shipping forecast and, the gale force winds and good night, everybody, and so on. And then it's such a simple song. There are basically two parts to the song, part one and part two. And I listened to it over and over again, thinking, is this Roger writing a song about refugees? Or is this Roger writing a song about the end of the world, about the last refugee being the last of us? And I really wanted to ask you, I know it's a poem, I know it's open to interpretation, but I really want your guidance. And I very much hope people will go and listen to it over and over again. But I want your guidance. The Last Refugee by Roger Waters. Share with me what you were trying to do with that song or what it means to you now, 7 odd years later.
And it's also the end of broadcasting for Thursday, the end of broadcasting for 1970.
Severe gale 9, decreasing 6 in Humber later. Rain, then showers, moderate or poor becoming good.
It actually starts off, and it's also the end of broadcasting for Thursday, the end of broadcasting for 1970, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, good. Yeah, I do remember all that. And interestingly enough, that is just another bit of the final cut. We heard today the Atlantic conveyor, the ship in the British, in the Atlantic convoy.
You seem to really love the shipping news.
Well, it's very important Do you know one of my great memories of childhood is actually the shipping weather forecast? Gale, Cromarty, blah blah blah. I used to know the names of every single one. Finisterre to the Northern Bight, of every single one of those all around the British Isles, because every night you got the shipping forecast for each of those things. I remember it well. And anyway, so there's all that. So that's really just setting the scene. I'm interested in your interpretation of the two things. It's actually the beginning of the song is a poem of love. I was in love at the time.
Lie with me now. Under lemon tree skies. Show me the shy, slow smile you keep hidden by warm brown eyes. Catch the sweet hover of lips just barely apart. And wonder at love's sweet ache and the wild beat of my heart. Oh, Rhapsody, tearing me apart.
Okay. So when it says lie with me now under lemon tree skies, show me the shy, slow smile you keep hidden behind warm brown eyes. See, I don't need to read these lyrics because I can remember them a while ago. This is a love poem to a woman that I was in love with at the time. So catch the sweet hover of lips just barely apart and wonder at love's sweet ache and the wild beat of my heart. Oh, rhapsody tearing me apart. Well, that is a little bit all on its own, and it's just a love letter, a private love or a love poem. So I hope it sort of expresses to some extent that that sometimes, if we're lucky or unlucky enough to be in love at one point in our life, because it is fucking painful often, as well as being rhapsodic. Oh, rhapsody tearing me apart.
That's it.
I don't, it feels like I'm tearing the wings off a fucking butterfly to explain lyrics to anybody, but as it's you, I will. Okay. But then the second verse is nothing to do really with her, except it is because she was Palestinian, the woman I'm talking about.
Ah.
And I dreamed I was saying goodbye to my child. She was taking a last look at the sea. Up to our knees in warm ocean swells, while bathing bells soft beneath hard-bitten shells punch their iPhones, erasing the numbers of redundant lovers, and search the horizon. And you'll find my child down by the shore, digging around for a chain or a bone, searching the sand for a relic washed up by the sea. The last refugee.
So somehow there's a connection to saying goodbye to a dead child. So there's a connection as well with the Turkish boy on the beach. So this is to do with all of that. I dreamed I was saying goodbye to my child. Well, I'm sort of with you about this song and how moving and difficult and important it is, because I can't even look at that line, or I just said it without tearing up
Mm.
and going to Gaza. So sitting here in Barbados in the sunshine with the dog talking to you, I'm also in Gaza with them, understanding completely that there's no possible way that any of us can possibly understand what that's like. There's no way. It's like you can't remember what pain was once it's over, can you?
Yeah.
When you're in agony, as soon as they take the tooth out and the pain goes away, there's no actual way to remember what it felt like. That there's no way for us to be even faintly aware, although we can burst into tears at the drop of a hat, what it's like to be the subject of a brutal genocide that's been going on now for 75 years at least, probably a bit longer, but certainly since for a year, just with constant. I won't go on about it because
No, no.
there's nothing more to be said about it. So, but I can't say the line.
Yeah.
I can't look at the line. I mean, I can. I'm going to look at it again now because we're talking about these lyrics. I dreamed I was saying goodbye to my child. She was taking a last look at the sea. Well, most of my younger friends and brothers and sisters in Palestine have, well, only the ones in Gaza have ever seen the fucking sea,
Exactly.
because no one in the West Bank is allowed anywhere near the sea. They're not allowed to travel. They're locked down. You know, they're in a prison in the West Bank just as much as they are in refugee camps in the Lebanon or Syria or wherever they might be, by the evil American empire and by the even more evil, if that's possible, Israeli forces. So taking a last look at the sea, wading through dreams up to our knees in, and this is interesting because I was persuaded, to my eternal shame, to change a lyric in this song by Nigel Gordon, who I love. He's a lovely man, but he decided that my song was too political. And I
And
was
that was the producer of the album.
producer of the album.
Yeah.
And Nigel produced the
Yeah.
album. Yeah. The actual lyric here is, it goes wading through dreams up to our knees in Levantine swells,
Oh.
is the actual lyric. What's recorded is warm ocean swells, because Nigel thought that Levantine was a bit too geographically specific and might stir people up to the suggestion that I was an anti-Semite, which might get in the way of people enjoying my pop songs. Well, fuck you. No, and fuck me too, because I allowed myself to be persuaded to take out Levantine and put in warm ocean, and I regret it. I regret it terribly. So anyway, yeah, but
Yeah,
what? Come
no,
on.
no, but I was going to say this is a great option to go back to the lockdown sessions and do a new version of this song for Gaza now. Just a
Yeah,
thought. Just a
yeah.
thought.
It would be very, very easy to do that, and you're probably the good thing about "Is This the Life We Really Want?" in another song that's on the record, Deja Vu.
What a great song. Yeah.
Thank you. I also allowed myself to be persuaded out of using and repeating the words "lay down Jerusalem, put that your burden down." However, I've since then toured the world with it, and it's all over the song because it always was, and it was always meant to be. And I did not resist the squeaky voices of, oh, try not to upset the Israeli lobby. they'll have you shot. Well, I know they will, but so fucking what?
Well, I
So
have to say, in the concerts in Santiago, the most powerful moment was when you belt out that lyric. It's really, really powerful.
yeah, it is.
So it's all the way there in the concerts, and it really moves people because it comes at a very powerful moment of the show. But that's just on the side.
Yeah, it is. But what's so this is a bit confessional what I'm doing with you now. I'm confessing that I allowed myself to be persuaded. This is no different than being told to look the other way if you live down the road from fucking Auschwitz. You know, no, you cannot be careful with the words that you use. You can't be politic about it. You can't go, well, you may be reducing the power of your message if you go too far. Hang on a minute. They're committing genocide. They are shooting babies in the head with high-powered sniper rifles and making TikTok videos joking about it, proud of themselves. You cannot go too far to fight this nonsense. Anyway, it's not nonsense to fight this evil. So this is interesting, though. After this, blah, blah, blah. While bathing bells, soft beneath hard-bitten shells, punch their iPhones, erasing the numbers of redundant lovers and search the horizon. Well, I'm that redundant lover.
How many iPhones have you had your number removed from? That's the
Only one.
question. Well, then not so redundant.
Yeah,
And it's
no,
not a
I'm making a general point, but
yeah.
I'm not sure that my number was actually ever erased from the iPhone, but all my texts were from a particular joint texts between me and the lover were erased from my iPhone. So that line is me rather bitterly, though I'm over it. So not hugely, and I'm very, very happy where I am with my adorable wife now, with Camila. So this is not something that I carry with me really, but I still remember it. It's just a mental health issue, not of mine, by the way, not of mine.
He says
You've cheered me up.
twice. He
Yeah,
says twice.
you've cheered me up now. But this is it, the end of the song, and
Yeah.
you'll find my child down by the shore digging around for a chain or a bone, searching the sand for a relic washed up by the sea, the last refugee. Well, that actually, I'm not talking about the end of the world. I'm talking about the beginning of hope.
Mm.
The idea of the last refugee, meaning people don't have to flee war zones anymore because there isn't any war. And
Aha.
if we could persuade all your readers and all my readers and all of us all over the world to believe what I'm about to say and to act upon it collectively in our billions, if we could persuade ourselves that we do care about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from December the 10th, Paris, 1948, and that we are going to demand that our politicians and political leaders and the United Nations and so on act upon the 30 articles of that great declaration. And if it is imposed upon the arseholes and the murderers and the tyrants and kings, okay, and the oligarchs and the neoliberal capitalists and the rest of the scum who rule our lives, that would provide the scenario and the setting for the last refugee. There's no need for refugee. There's no need for people to become refugees. And there wouldn't be if we collaborated with one another and sat down and I want you on the committee, Vijay, by the way, it wouldn't need many, about 50 people sitting and say, right, what are we going to do? Okay, this is this is how we're going to cooperate. And maybe a bureaucracy would arise from that might have to be thousands of people. Fine.
Mm.
You know, to organize, look at what the Chinese have done in the last 100 years. Or maybe even less than that, since the revolution, since 1929, something. They've done an enormous amount. They've organized themselves. I'm not saying everything they've done has been perfect or blah, blah, blah. You know, I wrote a song called Watching TV, which is on Amused to Death, about a Chinese girl dying in Tiananmen Square back in the day, back in that past. But let's not also forget that the main image that we all remember from Tiananmen Square is that tank not running that bloke over. It's not like Rachel fucking Corrie, the Israeli tank truck. Well, no, it wasn't even a tank. It was a Caterpillar K9 tractor, and he just ran her over because he had no respect for her at all because she was defending a Palestinian. Well, that bloke with his shopping bags in Tiananmen Square, the tank wouldn't run him over, which I've always thought is a remarkable thing. So, yeah, so we could do it. It needs the will, and we have to overcome the stumbling block of the enormous wealth and greed and mental ill health that is lined up against us, because we represent the voice of reason and we represent good people of good heart who love their brothers and sisters. So the battle is on, and they are an implacable enemy, as you know, to your cost, as do I to my cost, but nothing like the costs of millions of brothers and sisters.
Quite right.
So,
This is just a most beautiful thing because, as I said, I heard the last refugee as the end of the world, and in a sense, what you're saying to me is, well, that's true. It's the end of the world as we know it, and the beginning of the world that we want. In other words, the beginning of the life we want to lead, because this
exactly.
isn't the life that we want to lead.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah. We want no more refugees.
Beautiful. Roger Waters for People's Dispatch. Thanks a lot.